Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We are four regular guys talking all things fantasy football. Unlike some other shows, we only talk about fantasy football. We make our arguments, we present our cases, and you are the judge. We are all in the same fantasy football league. The people are real, the league is real, and the trash talking is real. Court is... Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We're glad to have you this morning. We're going to put the Los Angeles Chargers... Yes, you heard me correctly. Not the San Diego Chargers, but the Los Angeles Chargers on the stand. We're going to examine them and question all things Los Angeles Chargers. Before we get started, let me say this. We are going to break down all the teams, or all the positions. You know, we're going to get our rankings, our orders for the quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver. We've been asked about some of that, so those will happen. But for right now, we're just covering all 32 NFL teams. Briefly, what do you think about the Los Angeles Chargers, Jeremy?
I'm excited about them this year to a certain degree. They got rid of some dead weight that was underachieving, and I think they've got a chance to move forward.
Nick?
Yeah, I think I like them a lot. I think they made a lot of improvements over the offseason, and I think they have a lot of fantasy potential this year.
I think they're the same old San Diego Chargers. They just got a new city. And I don't know that they're going to be any different. I'm not saying they haven't produced some fantasy numbers, but there hasn't really been anything that's excited me much out of this team.
I agree. There's not a whole lot that really stands out. There's a few guys that have had flashes of greatness in the past, and we'll see what happens this year.
All right, we're going to talk about the most important position of any NFL team and any team on your fantasy, or any player on your fantasy team, and that being the quarterback. He handles the ball the most. He makes the decisions, makes the right reads, makes the right throws. I'm going to start with Nick first on this one. What do you think of Phillip Rivers?
I think he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback this year. They added Russell Okung from in free agency, and he is a top 3 tackle in the NFL. He is, no doubt about it, a great offensive tackle. Him and Trent Williams, probably the top 2 tackles in the league, and that's going to help him tremendously. They drafted Mike Williams out of Clemson as their first-round pick. He still got Terrell Williams, Inman, who showed promise in the last year, and they got Hunter Henry's entering his second year, and I just think they have a lot. He has all kinds of talent, the protection up. They also drafted Forrest Lamp from Western Kentucky. I think is in the second round, who I think is going to be a great offensive lineman. Forrest Lamp. He's a guard tackle. He can play either. He's from Western Kentucky
as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Dan Feeney as well. I think they improved the offensive line a lot. They added weapons. I think this is going to be a great offense this year, and I think you're going to see Phillip Rivers as one of the great quarterbacks in this year.
So are you kind of alluding to the fact that you think Phillip Rivers has more at his disposal this year than he ever has?
I think so.
Wow. Jeremy, what do you think?
Well, I think Nick stole and read my notes. I think the improvement, getting rid of DJ Fluker and a couple of the other underachieving offensive linemen, was the best move they could make. Adding these 2 guys, yes, there's 2 rookies that at least one, but possibly both may be starting, so that's going to have a little bit of growing pains with that. But I think that they're talented enough to handle it. There's some interesting stats on Rivers, though, that you have to like and respect. He has not missed a regular season game in the last 11 years.
Yeah, that says something.
If I can have a quarterback that I can pretty well know that he is going to be in the lineup every single game.
That's huge.
That is something that you have to. And then the other thing is, in 8 of his last 9 years, he's averaged 30 TDs and over 4,000 yards.
That's impressive.
That's not a bad. It's not a bad combination. I don't really necessarily have him as, you got to pick him to have your starting quarterback. But if I take a gamble and wait to the last minute to draft a quarterback and he becomes my starter, I'm not mad.
All right, last year he was the number 14th quarterback, but he led the league in interceptions last year with 21 interceptions.
And that'll hurt you.
If he can cut down them interceptions, he will be a top 10 quarterback.
He's currently the 15th quarterback taken off the board in drafts, so he's still that mid-level.
Well, I think by helping the offensive line and buying him a little more time, you go back and look at his career, he is not necessarily what we would call a high-risk quarterback when it comes to interceptions. I think last year he's older, he was running for his life, he's not as fast, and he put the ball in some situations that probably shouldn't have been in.
Exactly.
That's what I was going to say, but I think because that offensive line getting better, that hurt him last year. And not only that, but the running backs went out. Like all of his running backs were injured and hurt,
Yeah.
and that put him in some situations. That's why you saw the high interceptions. But I think with all that improving, Phillips Rivers will get back to his old self.
Okay. If you're going into the season as Phillip Rivers is your starting quarterback, how excited are you? I don't hear the enthusiasm.
I'm optimistic.
Yeah, I'm kind of at that midway point.
I think we're all in agreement. This is a guy you would want on your roster as a backup quarterback, as a fill-in week. If you can draft him later in the draft and just have him on the roster, just
He's
in
a
case.
great flyer.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's got a lot of potential. But if you're going into the season with him as in a 12-team PPR league, I think you're crossing your fingers and hoping some good things
I
happen.
just don't think there's a situation where you should go into your draft targeting him as your starting quarterback.
Well, I'd be okay if he was my number one quarterback. I'd be fine with it. Now, I'm not excited about it, but I'm fine with it.
I would be okay, but you're not going to go in saying, hey, I want to draft Phillip Rivers. The only
No, I'm
reason he's
not.
your starting quarterback is some crazy stuff happened in the draft, and it just fell that way.
If you're drafting Phillip Rivers, I hope you loaded up with a lot of good position players that you passed on other quarterbacks. Because if Phillip Rivers is your quarterback, that's what you've done. Any more thoughts?
No, I agree with the fact that if he's the one I end up with, I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next position. We're going to talk about the running backs. I'll start with Jeremy first on this.
Melvin Gordon. The best thing that happened to Melvin Gordon, besides the offensive line, is that Daddy Woodhead is no longer there.
Yeah, he's not going to be taking the touches.
He's
from
not
He
going to
wasn't
be
there last year.
Yeah, he got injured last year mid-season, wasn't it?
No,
Or-
first or second game.
But last year he did have the offensive line was pretty rough.
Yeah,
That
it
hurt
was.
him. So with an improved offensive line, with Danny Woodhead out of the picture now, I think that he's going to have better numbers. I've got him right on the edge of that number 5, number 6 running back spot because I really think he's going to be a complete 3-down back. And that they'll be that he'll get a lot more touches than a lot of other running backs.
Yeah, I think he is primed. Melvin Gordon is primed for a big year this year.
Contract year, by the way.
Contract year, improved offensive line. He was good last year until he had I think a little 2 or 3 games where he was banged up and hurt. But for the most part, he was great last year. I think that improved offensive line, contract year, he is primed for a big season. I'm his 4th best running back, and right behind the big 3. And you're sitting there, you go the big 3 running backs. You take Julio Jones, Antonio Brown at 5, and then right there at 6, I'm contemplating taking him or Mike Evans. That's the 2 I'd be looking at.
Wow, pretty high on Melvin Gordon. What do you think?
I'm not big on Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, I'm not
I'm
either.
not high on him. One of the reasons is because I know the offensive line's gotten better, but he had some opportunities last year that I just wasn't impressed with, even with that offensive line. But Ken Wisenhut's their offensive coordinator. He's a big passing offense. I mean, he's big time on passing offense. And if Melvin Gordon's going to see any productions in fantasy football, he's going to have to work on his catching. And I think that's where he might see some points. But I'm not big on him as far as in fantasy this year.
Well,
I know he's still an elite running back and all those things, and he's going to go in the first round in most drafts. I personally don't.
So
don't
somebody
like
you're
him.
just not really excited about.
No, I'm not excited about
I will break this news here. I do know for a fact, because like I said, I have a relationship with Melvin's agent, that they went to the Chargers this past offseason to negotiate a contract extension. And the Chargers said, we'll get back with you after this season.
Yeah, I think they have some questions about
So
Melvin Gordon.
with them telling him that does 2 things. That means that there's question. But number 2, that gives him fire. Because he knows if he has a good year this year,
Right.
that he's got them in a situation where they're going to have to come off 16, 18, 20 million a year to keep him.
He's
But-
currently the 6th best running back, 6th running back taken off the board in the average draft, so he's pretty high.
Yeah, he's pretty high, but I think that offense is going to come out slinging the ball. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not real big on Melvin Gordon. I'm sure he's good, but last year I didn't see anything that impressed me. I know there was problems with the offensive line, but I still think there were some opportunities there that I just wasn't impressed with.
So let's say you're 10th, 11th, 12th in the first round, and Melvin Gordon happens to fall to you. You don't dislike him that bad that you would pass on him, are you?
It depends on what other players are around me.
Wow, he's not very high on me. And I'm probably between these two. I'm not as high as he is, but I may not be as low as he is. But Melvin Gordon is somebody that I'm just not so sure. I guess because he hasn't. We're going off potential. We're going off probability, and he just hasn't stepped up to that next level, and that's kind of what concerns me. Any other running backs that we want to talk about? We've really talked about Melvin Gordon a lot. We got Brandon Oliver, and man, I don't even, some of these other guys. I don't even know if they're worth mentioning. Not really. So is Melvin Gordon going to be the main running back here?
I believe so.
That's why I'm higher on him,
Yeah, and that
because
makes him more
he's
valuable.
not having to split.
With
Not
Danny
having to-
Woodhead.
Right, not having to split touches, and that means he'll catch more passes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he's given the opportunity. Melvin Gordon looks like he's going to be the player that Los Angeles almost said San Diego. Man, these teams.
He's
Isn't
going to be in the-
Oakland moving to Las Vegas next year?
Yes.
I mean,
They are.
all these teams moving around, and L.A. Rams used to be the St. Louis Rams. Anyway,
Gordon's in the position that C.J. Anderson was last year, where that there's nobody else but him, and the only way somebody else gets brought into the picture is injury, or he just screws
Doesn't
it up
produce.
so bad
Yeah.
that they have no other choice.
And it scares me the type of injury he had last year. Some injuries you look at, but he had a torn PCL in his knee, and that's scary, man. That's one good hit.
of course, that's any running back.
I know that's any running back, but
But he's already
had it,
Yeah.
and that's got to scare you a little bit. So.
All right, so we're saying he's a first rounder. Where you take him in the first round, that's up for debate. All right, and like I said, we are going to break down the individual positions where we're going to be forced to rank them where we think they are, and we'll do that each of us. But that'll be future shows. All right, let's move on to the next position, that being the wide receiver. Phillip Rivers has got to throw it to somebody, so I'm going to start with Nick on this one. What are your thoughts on the wide receiver?
They drafted Mike Williams first over, I think it was in their first round pick. They drafted Mike Williams out of Clemson. He showed to be great at Clemson. They also have Keenan Allen coming back from injury. We'll see how much how full throttle he is after the injury. I think he can come back healthy, but he still has injury problems. So we'll see if he can stay healthy the whole year. You got Travis Benjamin, who's more of a smaller slot guy, and then you also got Dontrell Inman, who came on at the end of last year, and you also got Terrell Williams, who's a bigger target. They have a great wide receiver core, and it's going to be. I don't really see taking any of them too high this year because there's so many good ones, and I think they're going to share the ball between all of them. And plus, you got Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates at tight end. Just seems like they're going to be evenly distributed. It's not going to be one guy is going to be the number one guy unless Mike Williams becomes that number one go-to guy.
Jeremy?
I disagree. When I think of Keenan Allen, I think of the term bargain. I think you can get him late, and I expect him to return to close. I don't think he'll quite get there, but I think he'll return to close to his 2015 numbers, which were top 10. If I remember correctly, Keenan Allen it was at one point talked about being a really a first or second round wide receiver because of some numbers he put up in fantasy.
I believe he'll be taken in the second round.
I think that he could be.
He'll be another player that shoots up. He's currently being chosen as the 18th wide receiver, so that's into the second, beginning of the third.
I think that he is a low end wide receiver one, which puts him in that 10 to 12 wide receiver mark. Or a high-end wide receiver two, which is 13, 14. So if you get him anywhere in that 10 to 14 mark, I think you're getting him where he belongs. I think that he will have a real good year, maybe producing. He could be the guy that ends up with as a number 5, number 6 wide receiver if things fall right to him. Mike Williams got a big body, 6'4", 218 pounds. I think that he will grow but he's still a rookie. Still got a lot to learn. His route running is not the most precise. He just got away in college with being a little bit bigger and more physical than other people, which I don't know how well that translates to the NFL. Tyrell Williams, I have sucker pick wrote beside his name because I'm noticing a lot of people drafting him, in some cases, higher than Mike Williams.
Yeah, he is. Yes.
Yes. And I would not pick him before Mike Williams in any situation.
Thoughts on the wide receivers?
I agree with Jeremy as far as Keenan Allen goes, but there's just so many weapons there, tight end and wide receiver. I think the ball's going to be shared around a lot, and you might have a couple games of some high numbers by one guy, but I think it's going to be pretty spread across the board.
I've had these receivers, obviously not Mike Williams, but I've had some of the other, Travis Benjamin, Keenan Allen, and they just haven't been consistently producing.
Right.
If Melvin Gordon can play good football and these other receivers step up, Phillip Rivers could have a big year.
Yeah.
He really could have a big year because I think he's got more at his disposal this year than he's ever had. And I agree with that, but it's going to depend on Mike Williams really stepping up and taking that role that he needs to fill to help this team. We talked about Keenan Allen being the 18th overall. Are y'all okay with him if you get him in the second round? Not looking for him?
I'm not. I don't look at him until about fourth or fifth
I'm
round.
not.
If he's there, I'll look at it, but I doubt I draft him around
Third round?
Third round, he's in the
Mid third round. If you're mid third round, you still passing?
Nope, I'm not taking.
It depends on who's around him, but I think there's some other players I'd rather have.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm excited about him mid third round.
It's hard to say mid third round without knowing who my
It
first
is.
and second
It
round
is.
picks
I'm
are.
I'm just saying where his value is, where you think his value is. I understand that as far as who else you got. I mean, if you pick two wide receivers, Keenan Allen really isn't somebody you'd want in the fifth round because you've already got two of them.
I think
So,
that Keenan Allen is going to fall toward one of the ends of the draft. I think if you're drafting at 4 to 8 mark, you're probably going to get a wide receiver in possibly the first 2 rounds. So I think he'll be either catching on the back end, coming around one of the ends.
All right, let's move on from the wide receivers. We're going to talk about the tight ends now, and I'll start with Jeremy on this one.
Hunter Henry and Antonio Gates. Antonio Gates is aging. He's had injury problems the last several years.
37 years old. Taking a pounding.
I think the only reason he's staying, though, because I think he's close to one of Tony Gonzalez's records, something like that. He's trying to make that last push. But I don't buy either because I think that one hurts the other. And the only way Hunter Henry, I saw one ranking last night had Hunter Henry as number 9 or 10.
He's currently the 10th player on the
And
average.
I think Gates hurts him enough
That he
that
should be
I don't.
lower?
I think he should be lower. The only way he achieves the 9 or 10 tight end spot is if Gates gets hurt.
Nick, any thoughts on tight end?
I like Hunter Henry a lot this year. Of course, Tonio Gates is still there. He's still going to take some catches, some targets away from him. But Hunter Henry showed a lot of potential last year, and I just think that I don't see Tonio Gates being that much of a factor this year. He's just older. I see him being a spell tight end, maybe every once in a while get 2 or 3 catches, maybe a game, something like that. I think it's mainly going to be Hunter Henry, but still, I think the ones that's going to take the receptions away from him is the wide receivers. There's so many receivers in that receiving corps. So, I mean, it's hard to take him as a high tight end. I'd probably put him around the 11, 12 mark, somewhere around in there, just because there's so many receivers taking targets.
That still
Not
has him
necessarily
as a starting
Tonio
tight
Gates.
end.
Yeah, I still
He'll
have
be a starting
I think
tight
he'll
end.
be a starting tight end.
I think they're phasing out Antonio Gates. Any thoughts?
I like Hunter Henry too. Both those guys are huge men.
Yeah.
And last year they were targeted a whole lot near the end zone. And so I think we'll see that more this year, but I think we're seeing a lot more of Hunter Henry than we are Gates.
Yeah.
All right, is Hunter Henry somebody you want on your rosters currently, like we talked about, the 10th tight end taken off the board?
I think he's probably going to go sooner than what I would want to take him
Yeah.
in most leagues, but I wouldn't mind having Hunter Henry.
You
I
think?
don't want him.
I wouldn't mind having him, but I don't know if I necessarily want him as my tight end one.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. All right, let's talk about the defense, and we'll go with Nick first on this one.
They improved their defense a lot this year. They didn't really improve it a lot. They improved it a little bit with. Crap, I'm drawing a blank.
Jeremy?
We'll have to cut that out.
They're a top 15 defense, in my opinion. I think they will improve as the year goes on, getting some age on some of their young players that they've drafted the last couple of years. Being a top 15 defense, what that means, though, is they're a matchup play team. If they've got a good matchup, you play them, but you cannot put them in your lineup, just leave them and expect them to start every week.
Any thoughts?
I'm not real high on their defense. I've got them in the lower half.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not. I just don't really have much to say about them because they don't do anything for me. They're not very exciting to me.
Well, no, Joey Ambrosa's is second year, so he had 12.5 sacks last year. I mean, he can have a.
He didn't come into what, game 2 or 3?
I think something like that. So
You
he could.
talking about the Bosa kid?
Yeah,
Mhm.
from Ohio
Okay,
State. So
yeah.
he has the potential to be a great pass rusher. Add him with Melvin Ingram. I mean, you got two great pass rushers there. They'll have Jason Barrett back from injury from last year. They signed a safety in free agency. I think they can, and I think they drafted or signed another corner. So I think their defense will improve a lot, and I think they're still in middle of the road defense.
So going into the season, if the San Diego or Los Angeles Chargers are your defense, are you okay with that, or you rather not?
I'm not drafting
I
them.
probably would not. I'd probably
I
more
agree.
waiver wire.
All right, let's go to the last position, and we don't spend much time on this one, and that being the kicker. What do you have on the kicker?
Josh Lambo, he's not very accurate. That offense being better this year, he might have a few more opportunities, but he's still not accurate. He missed a lot of kicks last year. I'm not drafting him in any way, shape, or form.
Thoughts on the kicker?
I'm not drafting.
I would stay away. I've heard rumors that the Chargers have worked out some other kickers.
They have.
Go ahead.
Yeah, they have another kicker. I guess they drafted. He's a rookie from Georgia Southern.
Who young?
Youngko Koo.
Yeah. Stay away from
So I would avoid because
Not
I
draft.
don't. If you do want to draft one of their kickers, and I understand especially if you're in a live draft, I think that saying the name Koo Young Ho would be halfway entertaining.
Yeah.
But I would study and watch preseason before I took it.
We pretty much agree you need to stay away from them. All right, we're going to have last final thoughts on the Los Angeles Chargers, and then we'll close up the show. Any last thoughts?
Other than Phillip Rivers, I'm not real excited about having anybody on the Chargers on my team.
Yeah, there's two players, really three, Phillip Rivers, Keenan Allen, and Melvin Gordon. Kind of just want to see where they play out in the preseason. I'm not ready to write them off, but I'm probably not as high as some people are.
Yeah, I'd love to have Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon. Besides that, I don't really want to have anybody.
I would, at the right price, I wouldn't mind having Keenan Allen.
Yeah, at the right price, yeah.
But the first two, Rivers and Melvin Gordon, I'm happy at where they're going now, taking them.
All right, hit us up on social media.
Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at FFPort, all three.
If you have any questions, anything that you would like to see in our shows, content you want us to cover, just message us or post it to our walls. We'll be more than happy to cover it for you.
All right, court is adjourned.